We're getting into creating a business with Module 10. We have lots of ideas for you. We, as I said, you even have a full business course that if this is your first time around at creating businesses, it might be a good idea. Mark is able to go into some details on how to structure your business and what makes the most sense for you in terms of protecting your own individual self the best that you can. It mostly is geared towards the United States, but at the same time, it also has a lot of information that's just very general information in it that also is very important. So we've talked about, to be successful, you need to train your own brain. That's really 100% important. The second biggest thing is always leave your client in the driver's seat. Let them tell you when they're done with the process. Let them tell you how often they want to come back and how many sessions they want in a week, unless your schedule just will not allow for anything more. If they want to come in, 4 times in a week or 5 times in a week, and all you can do is see them once every 2 weeks, and with mental health therapists, that is very common, that's about all you do, then it might make sense to start looking at rental units. Because yes, of course, you could send them to somebody else that's relatively close to you. But for the most part, I think many people really appreciate the idea that you are still helping them through the process. And so when you have a rental system, it gives you that opportunity and that availability to be able to do that. So you can set your business up in lots and lots of different ways. You can do one-on-one in your office. You could do several different, almost like little pod areas where people can run themselves, or you get them started. Even a technician gets them started. If you are a therapist, there's lots of different ways that you can get hire a technician to come in at an hourly rate and let them hook people up, and then you receive the remainder of that because you're overseeing it and helping people in lots of other different ways. So some people actually give major discounts, maybe even free, for a second person in the family to come in. We personally never did that. We did give discounts, but we never did anything for free, because we learned right away that when you give anything away for free, the majority of the time, and I'm going to say 99.9% of the time, nobody else values it either. If you don't value it, then they don't either. And so they will skip sessions, they'll miss sessions, they just don't come in. There's all sorts of things that happen at that point. So, we would highly recommend looking at your actual financial structure, and we'll go through a little bit of that now. Never give anything completely away. Val, as we look at a business structure, he has always said, and I want to repeat it real quick, every session is the first and the last. Remember the kaleidoscope picture. Every single session is going to be a different session. It's going to be, the first session, but it's also the very last. It will never look like that ever again. So this is a kind of an important component as you start going through your business and creating it, that you help your clients understand that every single time it's going to be different. And if they make a lot of progress in one session, that may or may not happen again. It just depends on their little journey, but their brain will look different every time. So that new trainee meeting. The new trainee meeting, for us, we used to set aside about 90 minutes for it. It usually never went that long, but it gave us plenty of time that way. Personally, it was a complimentary time. We wanted more people to come in and hear about it, understand it, learn it, than if we charged money for it and people didn't want to pay just to learn about it. So we never gave a session away during that time, but what we did do is to make sure that we had a good hour for them, and possibly 90 minutes that we could spend time talking about what their concerns were, talking about what we thought we could provide within the NeurOptimal process. some of the things that we shared with them during that time was, of course, everyone is different and no one, you cannot expect things to get done in a certain amount of time. During that time, we did ask what their expectations were so that we could dismiss those and help them understand why they didn't make a lot of sense at that point. We also went through the little video thing, let us videotape you if that's okay, so that we had something to go back on. If they decided they did not want to enroll at that point, then I assured them that that would be destroyed and that I would not keep that on hand any longer. Rarely did I have anyone say they didn't want to do that. Most people were pretty excited about doing it actually, and it wasn't an issue or problem. Typically, one of the things we would say is the more trained your brain is, the more you might notice this or that. So what we were actually doing was educating them on what an optimal brain would look like. So that really helped alleviate any of the expectations as well. We would talk about the subtleties, and all of these things are in that flip book. So it reminds you, it goes through the whole thing and reminds you to talk about all of this with them. This is more in the advanced course, but I'm going to go ahead and share it with you anyway. When we make a change, because it's a difference that's noticed, and the brain immediately decides to change, it's a fast change. It's very quick. But it takes a lot of very quick little bitty changes to equal one subtle shift. So for us to be able to see all of these little bitty changes that are occurring, more experienced you are as a trainer, the better you are going to get at noticing those tiny little bitty subtle changes. I'm going to talk about that with them. We're going to check in and help them notice any kind of internal shifts so that they can start feeling the changes themselves and make sure that they are aware of those shifts. So if we notice something, we immediately bring it up to them to see if they've noticed that as well. And little by little, they will start bringing to you the changes and the shifts. You might want to do that through just an oral diary where they just talk it out on, within like a Dragon software type thing, and they're keeping track of it so that it's not so much that they have to sit every single night and write things out. Or I've had people text message me on a regular basis, and I just cut and paste the text into little notes section on my phone, and then that way I've got those kind of things to keep track of as well. And people don't seem to mind texting at the end of the day. They went okay, woke up feeling all right, I did this and that, and I noticed I didn't scream at the driver when he passed me. Those kind of things just made it so much easier for them to just text a real quick one before they'd go to bed at night. And it was easy for me to just put it into their online electronic notes. What I would normally tell them in this new training meeting is that if they would like to meet more often than I could, then I would be happy to rent them a system so that they could do it daily at home. But when they come into my office once a week, I'm able to just kind of get caught up. And it made me feel a little better about taking time to write in session notes to really talk to them about it. It wasn't just the 33 minutes at that point. It was, more of a 50-minute clinical hour type thing. And I was able to take that time to do that with them. And then also, we talked about the idea of purchase or anything at the very beginning as well. Now, you might ask yourself, why would I want them to rent or purchase when I could make more money business-wise if they just came into my office? And I understand that thought process, but I also understand it is really an incredibly abundant universe. We have so many people out there that are in need of this process that the idea of being able to see people once a week and see more people on a weekly basis or every 2 weeks or how often you're able to see them and still rent out systems. Mark's going to go through a little bit of rental and the revenue that you can make with that. That's a really nice passive income that you can make with really very little extra work in on it. No matter how good of a person you are, you still need to make money. You still need to be able to make enough money that you can see more people. And the more people you see, the more rentals you own, the more you're able to help a lot more people. And when it comes to sales, one of the things that Zengar has done is because they know and understand anybody could call Zengar and buy a system. One of your clients could see you 2 or 3 times, absolutely love it, and call the company and buy it directly from them. Now you've lost your client. Under those circumstances, what really makes the most sense is to just tell people up front that, you know, if this is something that you really, really, really enjoy and you like and you think that you'll want to use for a long-term basis, then let me help you buy a system. Because what will happen is that as long as you own a professional system and as long as you are a pass member, not a pass preview, but a pass member, then you'll make commission on a sale of a system. Now, it's not that this is enough money that you're just going to go out and sell every single person that you have in your office. That doesn't make any sense. But if these people are going to buy anyway, why not let them know up front that you can help them? Many of you that are therapists are going to ask yourself, are going to say to yourself, you know, that's kind of against my professional conduct. I can't do that. But that's not really the case. You can sell somebody a system to train on, and you can make a commission on it. The commission in that respect is your ongoing oversight of their process. So the ability for you to sell that system means that you are now being paid or compensated for that same client calling you and asking what happens to do this, can I order new paste, can I get more new sessions added to my system? And you will not sell a system and not have anything to do with this person. You will sell a system or rent a system and you'll oversee their process, which means that now you have not only in-office people, but you have the random people that would like to rent and or purchase that you're going to help here and there, and your office is still going to stay busy with all of your other in-office session people. So it's just an easier way for you to see a lot more people. And we have some people that really, really get excited. I mean, Mark and I kind of started the whole idea of the rental fleets. We had the largest fleet for the longest time. And the more we started working for Zengar, the less we started renting, but the more we were talking other people into doing it, or at least explaining to other people how they can do it. We have a woman out in New York that now has 48 rental systems. And she is a psychotherapist. She sees people in her office, and then she rents these systems to them. So they come in, they do a session on her professional system. She explains to them how they can rent and or purchase. Or the other thing is that you can have somebody rent it with an option to purchase at the end. And so it gives them a lot of different ways of being involved in the NeurOptimal process other than just one-on-one. So during that same new client process, one of the things that we do is we listen to their story. Again, of course, I like to record it, but if not, then I take a lot of really good notes. And in that amount of time, the notes I take aren't always what they say to me, it's what they look like, what they're doing, how they're responding, if they're emotional, if they're not, if they are really stone cold, straightforward, glaring, staring, and all of that goes down and into my notes. Because the first time they come in and they are now showing emotion and they didn't before, that's a shift. Those are all information that will help in the long run. So after I've heard their story, I then explain our process with our flipbook. And then I also make sure that there's some very important aspects they know, partly that are in the flipbook, partly that are just important. But to keep them happy, we talk about the fact that we have to notice the changes and differences. We talk about the idea that my role as a trainer is a detective. Their role as a trainee is to document anything and everything they possibly can, whether it's, like I said, an oral documentation like a diary, whether it's a written one, whatever is the easiest for them to do at that moment in their lives. Because the thing is, you know, people are coming into you because they are so horribly uncomfortable, then it's not easy for them to sit there and write every single night. May not even be easy for them to talk about it in a text message or anything else. So helping them figure out what their best method is going to be is part of what's going to make them your happy client. So you might mention to them the progress tracking tools, the diary, the videos. You know, they may just only want to video themselves every single time, and that may not be daily. It might be once a week. It might be however often they want to do it. You know, helping them understand that your job as this detective is also empowering them, helping them help themselves. And that really is one of our biggest philosophies and one of our biggest components. And so we want to make sure that they're comfortable, not only on how the system works, but that they also get all of their questions answered, and they also hear some of the other questions that other people might ask. Because again, where they are at that moment in time, they may not be able to even process being able to think about a question. They may be incapable of that at that moment. Asking how they would like to measure progress is also a very good and easy way of helping them understand what's going on. And then talk about the flow of the session, what that might look like, what, you know, the fact that you have this comfortable chair and that you have the session experience, which we'll go through here in just a little bit. But it really helps them understand. Let them know what an extrinsic constraint is, the idea that anything that is outside of the NeurOptimal process could be influencing or changing what's going on in their body. So it may be their medicine, it may be added medicine, you know, like an inhaler or something like that that could be making them anxious or excited or whatever. So what an office actually looks like in lots of different ways. This is a trainer that has several spaces in one location. So here's one, here's one, here's one, there's another one here. So there's 4 stations that people can go through. They're all wearing their headset, so they're not kind of involved with what the other person is doing or how they're doing it, but they don't have any kind of, here's some temporary walls here that this trainer can pull over and put in between people if she wanted to. So she's really got a lot of different options within this one room. Now, I've never done this in this way. I've had a nice long table where I've had a client on this side and a client on the other side, and they were teenagers that would be talking with each other at the same time. They wore their earbuds, but they could still hear themselves talk, and we would play a game together at the same time, or we'd be working on social pragmatics, which is more language based, you know, how to get along and those kind of things, you know, what to say that would be polite or impolite, those kind of things. So but I've done that, but I've never really had one room have 4 people in it, but it is an option that you could entertain if you wanted to. So in that element, I mean, you know, in that initial client session, it's really a time to get the client on board. Make sure they understand how the process works. Make sure that you talk about your pricing. You know, for us personally, we are on the West Coast of the United States, and so in California, our prices ranged from about $105 per session up to, depending on if they were seeing me, it could go up to $150 to $180, depending on, you know, what all we were doing. Now, with my technicians, it was usually about $105. And if they bought a package, it would go down from there, and they might even spend only $95 a session. Our offices in Indiana, though, started out a little lower. They started out at about $95 and would go down to about $80 for the the per package session. And a package was like a group of 10 or 20 sessions. So if they wanted to buy all of those up front, they could do it in that way. It was something that it just gave them a little bit more of a chance to purchase beforehand. Now, for those of you who are trainers, therapists, and you cannot get by in your state with having packages that are cheaper, you could have packages that are the same cost. It's just that they're buying them more upfront if you wanted to. One of the things that we highly, highly, highly recommend with NeurOptimal is if you are a medical person or mental health person, that you keep your NeurOptimal practice totally separate from your therapy practice. It is advertised separately. It is marketed separately. I guess those are the same thing, market and advertise. It is on your website on a totally different page than anything that you do with therapy. That way you can use your therapy language and your ability to support them in your kind of more medical way with insurance and everything else in terms of your therapy practice. But when it comes to your NeurOptimal program, it's something totally different. And you can even, if it is easier for you to advertise it in that way, then you have a tech right away. And your tech is the one who sees all your clients. You just kind of oversee them. And that's not a bad route to go either. And obviously, if you have a space like this where you've got, a lot of people in one room and you just have these portable walls, then you could very easily have a technician do that and not even worry about confidentiality in that respect, because you have your temporary walls and it's training and not your therapy process. So keep it as separate as you possibly can. Interestingly, the majority, and really a lot of people that start out as therapists end up only doing NeurOptimal sessions, just like I am. I went from being this cognitive rehabilitation therapist with my PhD in neuropsychology to, after probably 10 or 15 years of that, went into only being NeurOptimal practice on its own. So I never did do anything more with any kind of therapy because I found that it just really was not necessary with this process. This process was able to do everything quicker and better than I was able to do one-on-one. I think I was a very intuitive therapist and was able to meet people's needs rather well. So client understanding the office policies. This is a really important time. In that very beginning, we always just had a highlighter there, and in that folder of information, it would have our client consent form and it would have all of our prices as well as what our kind of rules were. They were showing up late or no show and we had a fee for it, then we made sure it was highlighted and they understood that at that moment. So with transparency, share everything that is important to your office. If you have discounts or refunds that you offer, make sure that it's in there and that you highlight it before they sign it so that they know and understand what those office rules are. We also have this session experience. It just kind of walks your client through what will happen in your office. They're going to fill out this paperwork. They're going to be seated in a comfortable chair. They're going to have these sensors on their head, 3 on the right, 2 on the left. They will wear earbuds. At this point in time, Mark and I would say we use speakers instead. So we just gave them that information as we went through it. We also made sure that they understood that the training itself was listening to music, and they'd hear these occasional interrupts and interruption in the visual stream, and that was the feedback. There wasn't anything more to it than that. So those were really important that we shared during that new client consultation time. Then really that was pretty much it. I want to go ahead and get into that whole idea of rentals and the whole idea of making more passive income. And so to start that, I'd like to have Samantha give us her idea of additional revenue streams.
Hi, my name is Samantha Diavatis. I'm the Director of Operations here at Zengar Institute, and I'm also a trainer. As we were developing the business models for NeurOptimal, it really became quite evident to us that it was very important for us to create as many streams of income as possible for people to use NeurOptimal as they were integrating them into their practices. While it's all fine and dandy to be able to see clients one at a time and fill up your days that way, it really was important for us, for our trainers to not only survive using NeurOptimal, but also to have the ability to thrive using NeurOptimal if they were so inclined. And so there are 3 different ways that you can earn various incomes using NeurOptimal. The first is the standard seeing clients in your office. Most of you are probably starting off with one system. Some of you may decide to integrate additional systems to your practice. You really can integrate as many systems as you want to your practice because you don't need to be in the room with NeurOptimal, because it's so easy to set somebody up and start their session for them. It's very easy for you to train additional staff members to hook people up and unhook them during the day, so it means that you don't have to physically be that person that's doing that. And the more systems you have, the more clients you can see, especially during those peak hours. Many times people do want to come after work or after school, or on certain days of the week and all that kind of stuff. So you can see way more clients in a short amount of time when you've got more systems. The second business model would be our rental model. So I've actually integrated 5 rentals into my business, and I absolutely love it. I've got to tell you, it is my favorite stream of income using NeurOptimal. People come in, it's a 1 hour up front. I'll show them how to use the system. Many times they come in and I'll give them a free demo session in my actual office. And then they end up going home with the system. I show them how to use it. I check in with them about halfway through the month, and at the end of the month they bring it back to me. And it's been a really easy model for me to implement. It's wonderful passive income, and it really is limitless. You can add as many systems to your practice as you feel that you can be renting out at one time, and it really doesn't take up much time at all. So it's about 10 steps closer to that financial freedom that you're looking for in life, really. And then the third stream of income is our ambassador program. So for all of our past members, when you become a past member, you also automatically become an ambassador. And so that means, or we know actually that just from past experiences, that a lot of our new trainers and a lot of our new personal trainer purchasers come to us because they've done sessions with one of our trainers in the past, and they've decided that they either want to start their own business or they want to do this forever, and so I want to get my own system, that kind of thing. And we totally get it. We get that it can be hard. It can not be fun to lose a client. And so what we did is we began the ambassador program, and what that means is that if somebody names you as a main person to have helped them during the decision-making process to purchase a system, then you get the ambassador fee. So it's a certain percentage from the sale of that system. And so we let you know if somebody has named you as an ambassador, and then you can collect your ambassador fee that way. And so we found that it just sort of removes the sting of potentially losing a client, if you will. So it can be nice, just a little bonus income. So actually on my own price sheet that I have for my practice, I start off with my in-session sessions and the price for that. And then the second item on my list is my rentals. And then the third item is a system purchase, because I know that whichever decision they make, I'm completely fine with, and I'll just help them move towards whatever decision they feel is the best decision for them. So I just wanted to give you some information about that before moving into the next sequence. And again, welcome to the community. We're thrilled to have you on.
And you're hearing my voice now because I'm the one that gets to talk about rentals all the time and why we would ever have built that up and so passionately promote it to everybody else, because it truly is a passive income stream. Or as close to passive as you can get in this world. You know, I'll spend a little bit of time cleaning it up after it comes back from a client. It typically is covered in paste, you can imagine. Maybe 30 minutes meeting the client and going over how to use it and sending them home. Or I'll allocate about that much time into getting it shipped and talking to them once they get it. And then just an occasional text message is the way I do it, once a week to see, hey, how are you doing? Are you using it? You know, nothing worse. I mean, financially, it's good for us, for them to rent it and not use it. But truly, you know, our job is to help them along their path. So it really isn't anything worse than getting a system back and having them use it 3 times for the month or something like that. We really grew our rental business out of our offices for families that were complaining about how far they had to drive to see us, or people who were having trouble paying for the in-office sessions. You know, you can just tell. The amazing part was, because the question comes up, why would I want to take somebody who's going to pay me $3,000 for 30 sessions and rent them a system for $700 a month? 2 months they can do 40 sessions for $1,400 bucks. I mean, it doesn't make sense in just a top dollar sort of thing. But truly what happened was that our in-office sessions never decreased. It opened up that time for other people. These are probably people we would have lost anyway because of the drive or because of the expense. So they truly ended up being additional income from people we would have lost anyway. Then we started expanding geographically to rent them to people that we hadn't even met yet. And so that just grew it exponentially at that point. So a little change of thought process in it, but that business can be very, very profitable. And so because of my background and my love for Excel spreadsheets, I of course made an Excel spreadsheet. Just quickly to go down through this, and I'm happy to share this with anybody if you like Excel. And this is only on a personal basis. We can do the same thing in the pros, but they cost more and they rent for more. We get about $700 a month. I built in a 90% efficiency ratio because you're not going to rent it 365 days a year. It's going to be in the mail, or it's going to be 3 days till the next person comes, fills it in, rents it out. The way mine are structured, and people have come up with all sorts of different structures, but I allow my clients to do up to 20 sessions a month. They normally come back with about 15 used. And that makes sense. If you're doing it on one person and they do it every other day, about 15. Then the other parameters of how many sessions are on it and what it costs to reload it. Basically what happens is I come out of pocket about $6,300. It brings back about $630 a month on average. That's our $700 at 90%. And so what we see is, you know, at the end of a year, I've completely recouped my out-of-pocket expenses, even with, since it's a personal system, adding more sessions. And then from then on, it just continues to generate cash. After a 2-year period, I've got $6,000 in the bank, you know, after getting all of my money back, you know. So tremendous investment in that way. You know, where else can you invest $6,300 and get a 10% return a month? So the only thing I can't project for you in this is how successful you can be keeping it rented. You know, that's a matter of your client base and your drive to really push the rentals and push them on the website or whatever. But even at a 50% rental efficiency, you make pretty good money on it. On Zengar's website, they actually have a contract that they've proposed for you to use to rent them. It is a great starting point. I've used this one and just slightly changed it. Of course, I've filled in our name and addresses and things like that don't change from time to time, and other things that I've just felt needed to be included in ours. But for the most part, the legalese of it is exactly what they have suggested. So the different practices, different ways to get into doing the work. Many times people will first do what we call piggybacking in with someone else, you know, talking to the chiropractor or that. It seems to work well in these alternative sort of places. Their customer base seems to be the same type that are willing to listen to what neurofeedback may do for them. Those are great places because typically they're maybe inexpensive to get into, and there's a set client base there that you can market to. And then we've had a few people that just go on the road. First one that we helped get started do this, she had a background in geriatric caregiving, and so she kind of packaged hers up in this roll around suitcase where she had everything that where it would fit in there, and she would go to these people's homes to do sessions. I think that's a great service. I think that the issue there, when I just put on just my business hat, my Excel spreadsheet hat, it takes about twice as long to do sessions that way. You know, for every session that she did, she had to, instead of allocating an hour of office time, she had to allocate 2 hours of travel time and session time, and then have the, you know, wear and tear on the car and the gas and things like that. So you just have to keep all that in mind in your cost structure and see how much of it you can build into your charges. So then when we talk about just the private practice, just about the office hours, about the only thing we can do there is one system versus multiple systems. What happens as you start to build your business is that, and this is especially true if you are slanted towards the children, school-age children, during the school year, you're going to build your business on peak hours of 4 to 7 p.m. You know, they've got to get out of school and get to you, and nobody wants to get home later than 8 on school nights. So you've got 3 or 4 hours that are really peak time there. And as you start to get close to capacity, you might start to consider how a second system will you know, double that 3 to 4 hour window capacity. And one person can run multiple systems at a time now that we're not required to drive the system. So put someone in one room, get it started, give them some bell or buzzer as a way to get a hold of you. 15 minutes later, have another room start. It's really, really efficient that way. So just some thoughts.
Most of the time, people are sitting in a very comfortable chair looking at the system. Sometimes people close their eyes, sometimes they keep their eyes open, as this one does. Sometimes they're actually doing a cognitive task, sometimes they're reading. So if you are adding anything else to your process, whether it's talk therapy, whether it's whatever, just be aware of what could be going on. Because if you've got somebody who's sitting there talking and, you know, dredging up a whole bunch of old yucky stuff, and they're crying and going on and all of that kind of stuff, it's less likely that the NeurOptimal process will make the same impact as if they're just sitting there still. So just be aware of that, and whatever you do, do it with intent. Know that you may be activating them under these circumstances. And if that's the case and they start to complain about the session, it may not be the session, it may be that we've activated them somehow. And so just, you know, be aware of that as you go through it. So you do want to try to make sure that if you're using an external monitor, that it's there, it's available, they're able to see it and be able to participate with that. Also, that it could be sitting off to one side, but it's still there for them to see if they need to. All right, we want to run through a handful of questions that other people have asked. Hopefully it'll either motivate you for questions, or it will at least answer some of them that maybe you have as well. So how many sessions does it take for whatever? And at this point in time, this is where your education for the client really comes into play. And we just have to let them know again that we don't know. And, you know, I think sometimes people worry about the idea that somebody's going to pay you per session for you to say, I don't know. Find your own inner peace with that. because people find that that is very valuable. It really helps them become empowered to do their own thing. And for you to then say, well, was that too many sessions for you this week? Would you like to switch to a different number? Was that enough sessions? You know, how are you feeling about your sessions? Is enough that it really starts to generate the idea that they're in charge of it. And it really helps them a lot at that point. How many sessions does it take for XYZ? We've already talked about this, and you guys know that you're going to help them understand that XYZ is like the color of a shirt. It really doesn't matter what your XYZ is, meaning whatever diagnosis, whatever symptoms, whatever it is. Instead, what really matters and what's really important is more along the lines of, you know, how do you feel after you've done the session? Do you want to do another session? And we can add them all up at the end. And for you, it took this many sessions. For them, maybe a different amount. So, you know, remember your analogies, metaphors, use the reading, you know, things like that. Just make sure that you're able to, you know, help them with that information at this point. Is there an age limit? Absolutely not. I mean, you can do this with babies in utero and on mommy's belly. Or in mommy's belly, not on her. You can also do this with newborns. You can do it with the elderly. We've done this with a man that was in a coma, and all his daughter wanted was the possibility of saying goodbye to him. And I had no idea what to expect. Neither Mark nor I did. And we did this for about 3 weeks. We'd go over to the rehab center and we would hook him up. We actually ended up putting on some of the music that he would have listened to when he was in high school or early college age. And I tell you what, after 3 weeks, that man did. He opened his eyes, he gave his daughter's hand a squeeze, and then he passed away. So it was enough that it meant the world to her. It helped both of them move on and transition. It was really incredibly impressive. And we'd never done anyone with someone who was in a coma, so we had no idea what to expect. And we told them up front we had no idea, but we were willing to do it. Luckily, it was just an incredible outcome, and we all held each other and cried. So. All right, regular sessions only. We have a regular, we have an extended. We always say that we have no proof that, and Val, again, Mark's talked about this earlier, that, you know, Val has done a lot of internal research. He has looked at lots and lots and lots of sessions. And there is nothing, there's no evidence that shows that somebody doing a longer session, a shorter session, a repeated session is getting more benefit than if they just did a 33-minute session. Now, you may have a client that says, oh no, I feel 1,000 times better when I do the extended. And you may have a client that says, oh, I really feel good doing it twice a day. Like I had a client once that, and she was not the only one, but I had a client that had Lyme disease. And again, Lyme disease doesn't matter. I'm just throwing it out there to you because in her mind, she felt as though if she did a session in the morning and she did a session in the evening, then she'd wake up feeling more refreshed and she'd be able to sleep at night going to bed. And so she ended up buying a system. First she rented one, then she ended up buying one, and that's exactly what she did. In the morning, she would do a session. In the evening, she'd do a session. And she did this for a year or so and really felt as though that was the only thing that gave her the energy to be able to work through this Lyme disease. Who knows? I mean, that's possible. It's her experience, and therefore it's valid to her. Now, if I had done that and actually did with another person, they would have a different experience. You know, they can't sleep if they do one right before bed, or they wake up in the morning and they feel already, you know, refreshed. It's so different with everyone. But sharing those kinds of experiences with everyone is okay. You know, they can make that decision. What to expect? Oh, getting worse before getting better. Side effects. Again, we've talked about this kind of on and off. The system itself is not creating a side effect. It's not putting anything in. It's not taking anything out. It cannot create a side effect. It would be like a teacher teaching somebody how to read, and all of a sudden that child is swearing all the time, and you're going to blame the teacher for teaching them to read. You know, you're just giving information to this person. How this person uses that information is unique. It's theirs. And how that plays out in their daily life is kind of theirs as well. So, and not to lay it back on their lap and say, oh, this is all your fault, you're the one doing this, but help them, educate them, help them understand that this is probably something that you've gone through earlier in your lifetime, and you're kind of recreating right now, mostly because you're getting the same type of feeling that you maybe had then. And by working through that, continuing to do your session, that will go away right away. And it does. I mean, for people that stick with it and keep doing it, they work through it very, very quickly. What to expect after the first session, we've already talked about that too. This is a bad word. We don't expect anything. And after the first session, we've had people that after the first session say, oh my gosh, I feel like, I've lost 25 pounds. I just feel like a weight has been lifted off of me. And we've had people that say, I didn't feel anything. Was I supposed to feel something? It's just all different. Don't expect anything, because we don't know what you're going to get. It's your journey. You tell me though, after you've done your first session, let me know how you feel. And I do ask that after they're all done. That's the first thing I say. Did you do okay? How you doing? What, anything you want to tell me about? And I just kind of leave it at that. Sensor falls off in a session. We talked about this one too. Just put it right back on. Don't worry about it at all. If it falls off, it falls off. Now, if all of them fall off, under those circumstances, educate them, put them right back on again, and get going again. You do have kind of a pause button. So just pause that session as soon as you notice it, put them right back on and go on. In that particular case, because preteens, the one thing that they don't really like is all the paste in their hair. So I would just say that, if there's really not a whole lot more, it's not like they're autistic or something like that, where they don't notice those types of things. I would highly recommend just explaining, I know how much you can't stand that paste in your hair. Every time you pull them out, it doubles the amount of paste that's in your hair. So if you can just kind of tolerate them and let them do their thing, and let's play a game instead, or distract them, do something different, then typically that's enough to allow it to keep going. Allow the session to keep going. If clients do come back with, I have this symptom, I used to get headaches, a long time ago, or I get migraines, and I had a migraine last night, ask them how it's changed. It's not just duration, intensity, and frequency, but how are they perceiving it? Is the change with it any different? Does it look different to them? Does it feel different to them? Were they able to, kind of work through it a little quicker? Especially people that have any kind of a mood disorder. How did you deal with it? Did you get triggered by it? Were you able to just step back and look at it and move on, and it wasn't a big deal? Because it's not as though life is going to automatically, like a magic pill, change. It's that you're training towards a change. And so sometimes it's just educating on how that change has changed, what that looks like, the perception of it, that will matter. Are there populations that you should not run? And no, there are not. Even totally 100% deaf individuals, you can adapt it to them. You can use that speaker that I was talking about that has a big bass sound and put it on their lap and let them feel it. Do the results last? It's a little bit like playing the violin, learning to read, knitting or weaving, or anything that takes a task. If you haven't done it for a long time, then you might need to go back and have a reminder or two. And then your brain remembers immediately and you do it. if you haven't done it for a long time, it's more that something else has happened. You were in a car accident, and you lost a spouse or a child, or some horrific event occurred that really threw you off kilter, and you need to come back again. You got horribly sick, you're in the hospital, you had surgery, you had all sorts of things come up in life that you might need to do a quick little reminder. Maybe it's just adolescence and you've got neurochemicals that are running through your body on a regular basis. So it's those kinds of things that you'll want to pay attention to. Medications are an interesting one. I know we just talked about this a second ago, but I want to touch on medication one more time, because if somebody has a reaction to this process, what I have experienced is that it is many times, it's the interaction with the medication. And what I mean by that is they're doing the process, they feel as though they're getting better, they're doing better, they're getting better, life is okay. Bam, it's as if they hit a brick wall and everything changed. Then in my mind, my very first reaction is, are you still on the same amount of medication that you were when we started this? If you are, I would talk to your physician about titrating your medication. Because for the first time ever, your body's trying to do what it couldn't do before. And the medication could be inhibiting that from happening and therefore creating some side effects. So keep that in mind. We are not allowed, nor should we tell somebody to play with their medication, but we do need to educate, and we do need to have them understand that it's a possibility that medication could be getting in the way at this point, and you might want to talk to your physician about that. Now, it may take you talking to the physician, because to be quite honest, it's kind of counterintuitive. They're going to say, you got to be kidding me. Now, all of a sudden, they're having all these symptoms again, and you think I should reduce medication? I think I should double their medication. And I've had to honestly say, humor me. Just try it. Try to, don't take them all the way off. By any means, don't take them all the way off, because we'll lose the whole infrastructure. But allow them to come off of it just a little bit. Watch them, pay attention to them, as you always do. And typically they really are. Typically you do not have to talk them into doing this. Most of the time they're very open-minded and very willing to try. But occasionally you do have to kind of talk them into it. Give it a go and let them, talk to the physician and see if they wouldn't do that for you. When to stop neurofeedback, it really is totally up to the individual. I had one family that I worked with him for, I'm going to say 5 to 6 years, starting out a couple of times a week, then getting to 1 time a week. And I did this with this adolescent clear until the time he went to college. And when he went to college, we sold him a home system, and he continues to use that system. That is just part of his life and his world. He's Asperger's, and it just was enough for him to feel comfortable. In the end, that's what this is all about, is to feel comfortable. So booster sessions, that's coming in when you feel as though you just need to have, you just needed to have a little bit of stability. We always, when people say they're done, and they will, they very naturally, just all of a sudden, you say, would you like to schedule something next week? And they say, I think I'll just skip this week if that's all right. So you text them, or you email them, or you call them, and you try to schedule the next week. And they say, I'm still doing really pretty good. Give me maybe a couple of weeks. And then they will come down, and they automatically they have decided on their own to go ahead and do it almost on a monthly basis. I'm ready, I want to come back in for a session. And then they do that for a little bit, and then all of a sudden they just don't come back. It's a very organic, natural way for them to be finished. It works out really, 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 really well. And surprisingly, just like I said, the universe is totally abundant. All of a sudden, another person or two will come into your life at the same time. It just seems to work that way. You know, we lost our daughter when she was 6 weeks old. She had a severe heart condition. And I tell you, after doing more and more and more sessions, it's been so much healthier for me. I'm really able to stand aside and understand that cognitively, I didn't want her to live through that. I mean, she would have been miserable. I mean, yeah, it killed me, crushed me, but at the same time, for her, it was really what needed to be done at that point in time. She had to have the surgery. She couldn't make it through the surgery, and that was that. What used to be, I couldn't even talk about it, is now something that I can sit right here and tell you about. And so I think that what ends up happening when you go through a traumatic event, or you have a lot of trauma in your life, you just are able to perceive it differently. Automatically takes them through that perception change, and they're able to do it very easily. So, session series versus lifetime commitment. There are just some people that will want it for their lifetime. There are some people that feel as though it has helped them so much that they want it for their lifetime. There are people that feel as though they cannot really seriously afford to go through an entire commitment of $3,000 worth of one-on-one sessions. And so they want to purchase it, and then they want to resell it. And that's something that Mark and I have always told people. You know, we don't want them to feel like they're committed for their lifetime if they buy a system. Purchase it, use the heck out of it, do what you need to do with it. And when you're ready, let us know. We always have people that are interested in used systems. We always will help you sell the system. If we are in a position of buying one for a rental fleet, we'll do it. If we're not, then we'll help you figure it out. And we do. You know, we really help people resell when they need to. And so it makes the sting of purchasing a little easier that way. I can tell you, rarely do people sell it again. They really do. They really are able to very cognitively understand that it makes sense for them to hold on to it. Now, the hard part is trying to get them to update and do everything else they need to do if they're not using it at the moment. So, because they may have to invest a little bit more money and they may not want to do that. So, research. We have a research conference. It is so much fun. We have anywhere from 200 to 500 people, and we all get together, we network, we're able to hear stories of everyone's, people's journeys. If you want to tell a story and you want to be involved with it in that way, I recommend that you either reach out to me and I'll send it on to somebody for you, or there is Lyddie, Lyddie. Contact her and let her know. It's Lyddie at NeurOptimal.com, and she will give you the paperwork that you can fill out, and you can be chosen to be one of, it'll probably be 25 people that will get up and do 30 minutes, 45 minutes of just, this is my story, this is how it happened. And it doesn't have to be about how NeurOptimal affected you personally. It could be about how you use it in your office, how you created a business out of it, how successful you are with your marketing and your ad type thing. It could be, really, it could be about anything that you find valuable in your world that you want to share with somebody else. So it's a great, great, great time to be involved with other people. So please join us if you can. That's a good one. All right, so those were some of the typical questions that we go through. I want to take a moment and look at branding, because for NeurOptimal, we've talked about it, that it has its own language, but I also want to really share with you some of the unique parts of NeurOptimal. It does have its own consistent message. We want all of us to speak the same way. When you go out and you talk to your clients, I want you to be able to do a little Vulcan mind meld from me and just immediately tell people exactly the way Lisa would say it. I try to do it exactly the way Val would tell me, Dr. Brown would tell me to do it. We're all just trying to be in the same playing field, helping others understand it in the same way and using the same language, no matter what your mother tongue is. We're trying to do that with people in France and Italy. We emphasize the same things and we leave out other things like our opinions, our experiences in that way. Meaning, it's not that we don't want to hear your experience with how NeurOptimal helped you. It's that we don't want to hear your experience on how you think the tunnels, when they have blue, you need more caffeine, or you need less caffeine, or you need whatever. Those are just beliefs. We don't want beliefs. Leave those out. We want only the science, only the math, only the same consistent language. And as Val Brown would say, nothing more, nothing less. So we would love for you, as an extended member of our Zengar family, to represent Zengar in the same way that the rest of the staff does. Some of the things that are going to be important to know about that is the trademark rules. In the lower part, and I'll go through this with you here in just a few minutes when we go through CAS, but in the lower part of the footer of the website, all in black down there, is a place that says trademark rules and policies. Please, please, please read those so that you know what you can do on your website, what you can't do on your website, what you're allowed to use from their website, what you're not allowed to use from their website. So you are allowed to say, we proudly offer NeurOptimal sessions. You are allowed to put your certification on there, your basic certified after this course, or you add the second one, which is your advanced certified. But what you are not allowed to do is use their logo. So these are important things because we want you to be successful. We do not want to contact you and say you're illegally using our logo. So take a moment, read it. If you don't get it, if it's hard to understand, you're having some issues with it, please come back to me and let me know. If you're writing a brochure or a business card, or you're putting your website together and you just have a question, email me. Don't forget, it's spelled funny, LISE @neuroptimal.com. Email me, let me see it. I'll quickly look at it and say, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. Can we use this? I love this. Can I share it in my class? Or I'll say, leave this part off. We don't really want to hear that part, but the rest is really good. Or I'll revamp it for you and say, I'd switch this sentence to sound like this. So just send it on. Make sure that you're using the registered signs. Remember, registered after NeurOptimal and registered after dynamical neurofeedback, registered after the word Zengar. All of those things are very important.